or abstraction, but we're really looking for balance. Would I say, would you agree?
That would be true.
You always have to keep the balance in there. To me, it's also like if either it's in architecture or in fashion, the balance of like the front at the back and three-dimensionally. I think that's always part of it. And yeah, once something is in balance, then there is also a natural feeling to it.
So would you do a 6-inch platform shoe?
I wouldn't, because then I feel like gravity is like my tip over. My thing, it's also like maybe that's also one part of growing up in Holland where there's a lot of that design principle. It's also very functional. There's a big functionality in there. So I always have to there is a certain balance between aesthetic, likableness, as well as functionality in there. So that's my approach, my own design philosophy or principle. It's like I'm not a very extravagant, like extreme on one end. So there is a balance in there, be it aesthetically, the comfort, just the sense of the feeling of that natural 舒服.
Comfort.
In the end, I also feel like once things that goes in the flow, it needs to have that natural flow with it, without have to explain why something is better than the other, why one thing is more beautiful, and it has to stand on its own.
At this point, I have to challenge or expand the discourse of comfort to expand to spirituality, because really, we're talking about physical comfort. Now, today, as we are aware of sustainability and the issues of global warming, and we're going to make some sacrifices, I'm sure, personal sacrifices, in order for a greater good, which is the 20th century has brought us immeasurable comfort at a very great price. And so, obviously, when we start thinking about endless comfort, it can't be that of a corporal condition, but a condition of comfort, spiritually comforting. Because, Yeohlee, because I brought that up because, it's interesting when you look at your clothes vis-a-vis comfort, because most people would think, well, a knit tube, would probably be the most comfortable thing you pulled on. And yet some of your constructions are a distillation of something from a very complex set of conditions. So you didn't start with simplicity. You started with great complexity, but the simplest rendition of this complex set of problems. In pursuit of what? That's curious. And my suspicion is in pursuit of some other kind of satisfaction, some other kind of comfort or comforting qualities that to know, not only to physically feel, but to know intrinsically that you are whole somehow. At this point, I have to urge you to experiment. We don't have any visual cues, which is very hard for two architects and two fashion designers to have no audio-visual, no visual augmentation. We can only talk so much. So, is that right? Picture is worth 1,000 words. So Yeohlee is one of the few who actually can wear her visuals. So can I just demonstrate something?
Sure.
You have to stand up, though.
Could I? Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll explain it after.
Yeah. Well, you can explain it first, but you just showed me this morning.
Essentially, some of my processes has to do with just having fun and experimenting with things.
Just having fun.
Yes, just having fun. And, I spent a lot of time experimenting mathematically, because my last collection was about counting and zero waste. And the inspiration was in counting songs and the lead song of Sesame Street. But, it led to a collection that, everything in it was measured. So to make a long story short, from rectangles, squares, triangles, and circles, I came up with a cube. And the challenge, of course, was to make the cube wearable. So are you ready? Or are you still? So here we go.
Needs a little.
I have to get rid of this thing. Let me see. Let's do this.
Oh, yeah, that's another demonstration.
And here we go. I'm wearing a little cube. And one would think that a form that is as rigid as a box is couldn't be comfortable. But essentially, I was able to add pockets.
Very functional.
Yes, and comfortable.
And speaking of pockets, I always want to try on Yeohlee's
Probably
closet.
my best model.
Okay. The thing is, once you start,
It's inside out. Yep, you got it.
once you start dispensing with conventional sense of what masculinity and femininity, and just start thinking about how it feels. And Chinese, this is all, of course, folded flat, isn't it? It's like a
folded,
Japanese
yeah.
kimono. It's like a square.
Yeah.
It's a square. That was a square in a cube. This is a square. And then, of course, square the way gravity works with it. And, of course, pockets.
Here.
Wait.
Right here. Yep. Under your pocket.
All right, sorry.
Hidden pocket.
I need a little practice here.
This
But
is the
it's
pickpockets.
all I know is that when I put this
the pants.
on, I just feel very, very different. I mean, it feels. Okay, I look different too, but
But it suits you.
I'm ready to hit Washington, don't you think? Anyway, so I would go on, but I just think we had some very good questions. Do you mind if we just start answering some of these questions? Well, the most obvious one, is creativity a natural born trait? And if not, can you develop or cultivate your creativity? And if it's yes, how can one go about developing or fleshing out that side of you?
I think, yes, you should have something, but that cultivating it or educating it allows you to extend to go to the next level. Because if I just think about myself, if I had stayed in China, I was born in the 70s, and that was the last years of the Cultural Revolution. If I wasn't given the opportunity of then my parents moving to Holland and kind of just left out and like, you do your thing. I think if I had stayed in China, I might have just followed the very uniform way of like, be very good in mathematics, go for your economics and all that, which I was very good. By the time I got to Holland, I was able to do, I could skip my mathematics classes. I don't know how to do that because that was like bumped into me already before I left China. So, but then the truth was really like, once I got to the platform of education where I was able to be exposed to it, but encouraged mostly, and thirdly was just be able to experiment with it. I think that really allows me to kind of to discover myself. So I think it's just really two things. One, to have the inbuilt sensitivity to it, and secondly, if you're not being exposed to it and not be able to experience with the like-minded ones, you might not be able to develop the further part of yourself. So in my case, both the cases were there.
I'm sorry.
No, okay, go ahead.
No, I think that both teaching and mentoring can nurture that as well. So, because I actually, personally, I believe that it's intrinsic to everybody to be creative. It just comes up in different ways, people have different skills. I mean, you have to be creative to be a lawyer and be successful.
Yes. So, this brings, actually, since I'm also involved in education, so creativity, it became really the mission of all educators following your notes. And I think Chinese culture is intrinsically creative, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. I think it is basically creativity actually is taughtable, is actually because it's a pedagogical mission, so it has to be kind of analyzed for what it is. I think we've come to a couple of notes again. One is independence. to teach independence is probably the most important thing for creativity. Because if you're not independent, you can't possibly creative. Right? That's really the key. Second is actually it's entrepreneurship. You have to be entrepreneurial to be creative, because then your entrepreneurial, the consequence of your entrepreneurship then became the fuel, the kind of the impetus of your creative success in